What's up, Freedom Calling Nation? Thank you for tuning in, and today is going to be a public service announcement about this thing right here. Don't be like this guy, all right? Because I let this happen. I'm going to tell you why you need to look out for this. Coincidentally, I've seen a lot of forums and a lot of Facebook groups talking about this exact scenario, and I let it happen to me. So here's the thing. All right, your RV, we're going to talk about specifically 50 amp RVs right now, okay? 50 amp. This is a 50 amp male plug that actually plugs into your panel, your electrical panel. All right, I have an EMS system, an electrical management system. I will post the video. If you don't know what an EMS is, I will post it above. However, my EMS was not hooked up, but even if my EMS was hooked up during this scenario, it would not have helped. The EMS would have burnt down and would have voided my warranty. It just so happens in my EMS a couple of days ago, I noticed that it had moisture in it, called up Progressive, and they're sending me a brand new one. I didn't have it plugged up at the time because I didn't want overage coming in and doing this. But this was actually my fault. So here's the thing. Your RV is designed to pull 50 amps only. So it maxes out at 50 amps. On your RV panel, especially 50 amp panels, I'm going to show you here in a second, but it's split. You have what's called a bus bar, not the kind of bus that you take on the way to school or you take on the way to your Aunt Thelma's house. No, this is a bus bar that actually distributes power. So this bus bar, your breakers hook up to it, and that is what sucks in the power and distributes power to whatever you've turned on, your microwave, your fridge, your AC, or whatever it might be. Well, there's two bus bars and they are separated. And what happens is they're designed in such a way where they're supposed to suck, if you will, amps evenly. So if you have two ACs like we do on your rig, then one side will have your AC on it connected, or one AC, and the other side will have the other AC. That's so one side won't be lopsided, because if it's lopsided, what's going to happen is one side is going to heat up a lot more than the other, and this could potentially happen to you. What makes it worse is if you hook up external power devices, like let's say a third air conditioner, like someone might have done in their toy hauler garage to keep it cool back there. When you hook in your external AC or your mobile AC, your portable AC, then that power has to go on one side. It's either got to go on this side and this side. And if you're running both of your manufactured ACs and your third mobile powered AC, then one of those legs is going to get way hotter than the other, and that is exactly what happened to this. What we should have done is plugged in our mobile AC to the actual panel. There's a 20 amp plug. It's a standard plug. We could have plugged that into the panel. However, our panel, for whatever reason, it is what's called a GFI, and it is tripped somewhere down the line. That's why we weren't using it. So if you are using external devices that were not designed to go into your RV, then you really need to pay attention to this video. I'm going to show you how to avoid this happening to you so you don't have to replace your plug, your cable, and the inlet where your power goes into your RV, because let's face it, cables are expensive. All right, I'm gonna break this down really quick in a simple method, okay? So let's say you have, like myself, we have two ACs coming in. So we've got an AC right here, we'll just say AC, and we've got another AC right here. Most big rigs have 2 to 3 ACs. All right, so normally, if it was done correctly, you also have what's called a bus bar inside of your panel. All right, so this is actually hooked up to the external power. So this is the, let's say campground power. We'll just say camp power. This is your 50 amp plug, 50 amp. And what happens is your AC, so the power goes here, and then it goes to your AC. Here to your AC. All right, we're gonna call this sun, all right? In the summertime, when it heats up, your AC is gonna be drawing a lot of amps, all right? A lot more than normal. So your bus bar, this whole bus bar, or this whole panel right here, should be a 50 amp panel, 50 amp. And along this bus bar, you have breakers, little switches, that control everything in your RV. bam, bam. We'll just say these are switches, right? You can flip these on and off, on and off. All right, so if an RV is not wired correctly, these are supposed to be evenly distributed. So remember, this is 50 amps, so you should have 25 amps max on this side, 25 amps max on this side. Now, it should be evenly distributed. That it doesn't mean that you won't have a little more or a little less on this side, but it should be evenly distributed. All right, so what happens is if you have two ACs, hypothetically, on one bus bar, maybe on this bus bar, then we're going to be pulling significantly more amps on this bar, which means this wire right here, so these are 3 wires. So in your cable there are actually 3 wires, right? One of these wires goes all the way over to here to power this bus bar. One wire goes to power this bus bar, and the other one is a neutral. It's just a ground. It grounds out. All right. So this little bitty cable right here, if you have the one bus bar that's pulling out maybe 30 amps on this side, although it's not 50 amps, you're going to fry this little bitty cable right here. Same thing on this side. If this one's pulling out more than, let's say, 25 amps, then you're going to fry this cable right here. So you have to make sure that your power is evenly distributed among these bus bars. All right. So what I did was I took off the panel, the cover to my panel, and I made sure that one AC was going to this bus bar and one AC was going to this bus bar. What happened, why my actual plug caught on fire, why this happened, is because I had 2 ACs on this bus bar. Alright, so AC, AC, and AC. So in the heat of the day, let's say this was AC1, AC2, and this was the mobile AC. I know this AC right here pulls anywhere from 9 to 10 amps. This one right here pulls about 14 amps regularly, so without being 107 degrees, and this one pulls about 13 amps. So now, as you can see, now we've got almost 25 amps on one bus bar. All right, so remember, this is coming from the panel right here. We're gonna go make this go all the way to the panel. So now we've got 25 or even more coming off this panel. And if the refrigerator is actually connected to this panel as well, then when that refrigerator panel, or when the refrigerator compressor kicks on, let me get you clear here, then what's going to happen is this is going to be drawing even more amps. So we're in excess of 25 amps right now on one bus bar. What happened is, if you can see this right here, only one side actually heated up and melted. Can you guess which side would have heated up and melted? So this side right here, right? So what we need to do is actually go into our panel and make sure that, one, we're not running this mobile AC anymore on this bus bar, or we can't run this AC anymore here. We can't run this AC while we're running this AC. If we have this AC off, we can run this one. But for the sake of simplicity, what we're going to do now is go into the bus bar and make sure that both of these buses are even. So we've got no more than 25 amps coming on this line and no more than 25 amps coming on this line, so we don't have this issue again. Now I'm going to show you a really easy fix how you can tell how many amps are on this line or on this bus and how many amps are on this line. So let's go check it out. Alright, so there is an easy way to detect how many amps your RV is actually drawn from the box, and that is with this right here. This is a simple amp meter, and an amp meter will show you how many amps each side of your bus is actually drawing. Now all you have to do is open your panel. You should have 3 wires out of there, a black, a red, and a white. So your white is actually neutral. It should be hooked up to your ground bar. and then your other 2 cables will be sent to either side of your bus bar, one going this way, one going that way. And if one side is overloaded with power, then you could potentially end up with something like this. So what you want to do is go and measure both sides of their bus. All this does is clamp, let's say this is one of your wires, like your black wire. You just set it over there and it will tell you how many amps are actually being pulled off of that one side. So what I would do is I would turn everything on that you run in your RV in a day. So make it fair. Make sure if you're running your fridge, make sure your fridge is on. Everything that you run during the day, turn it on and then measure how many amps are actually coming out, how many amps your RV is actually drawing. So this is what your standard panel looks like. I've taken off the door, but most of the time it's open and it's on here like this, right? So this is what your standard RV panel looks like, electrical panel. You've got mainly 2 sides unless you have a solar panel outside or something like that. But you have an AC side, or this is from the power coming into your RV from a panel. So AC, alternating current, and you also have power coming from your batteries. This is your DC side, your direct current. So you've got your AC coming in through the panel, and then this is what's all powered from your battery. So these are all your fuses that actually control your battery operated, just like your car. So these are all DC fuses. Now what we're talking about is our AC side, all right? So these 3 wires right here are actually what's coming in through your panel, all right? And that is what you want to make sure is evenly distributed among here. So we've got half of this side is on one bus, so there's 2 bars behind here, these breakers. 1 bar that goes behind to here, and 1 bar that goes all the way to here. Now this side, this 50 amp breaker controls everything on this side, and this 50 amp breaker controls everything on this side. Now if one of these sides is overloaded with power, that's where you're going to have a situation like we just had, and your plug is at risk of burning up. So what you want to do is make sure that these 2 wires here from this bus, this red one is going to this side, the black one is going to this side. You want to make sure that the power is evenly distributed. So turn on everything in your RV. So right now on the right side, we've got about 9.5 to 10 amps on the right side, and on the left side, we've got 10 to 11 amps. So that's actually pretty good. Now the other day, I would have had 20 something amps coming on this side and only 10 on this side, which caused an overload. This right here is the cure to any over amperage problems. So you've got your EMS now. The EMS is a must, because not all RV campgrounds have steady power. You're gonna want steady power. Make sure you get an EMS. We recommend Progressive because we have had 2 of them that have gotten actually moisture inside of them, and Progressive has replaced them, no problem. So EMS, and make sure you have an amp meter, because just because you have an EMS that's measuring the power coming out of your panel, it does not stop you from sucking power from the panel, if that makes sense. So if you have on too much stuff, if you're powering too much stuff in your RV, anything that has a compressor, like so an AC, or anything that has heat on it, a heater or a heater element, that's what's going to be sucking up the majority of your amps. So make sure you have an amp meter to make sure that your power is distributed equally among your bus in your RV panel. Thanks a lot. Make sure that your plugs don't burn up. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Take care.